It's spring week 11 here in Apothecaria, and in this third part of this week 11 episode, we finally get to do what it is I've been waiting to do all along and say that this is the thrilling conclusion. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Drawing Expressions. I'm Parz Satva, and yeah, that intro, it took me like half a dozen times to get right, but I'm so glad I did. Okay, so anyway, yeah, it is spring week 11. This is the last episode, and this is the last piece of the last episode to my Apothecaria story. There is one more. It's the epilogue, which, you know, you can call it another episode or not. I'm going to call it not part of the main story, much like a prologue, but that comes after. This is going to be the last piece of the story proper. But before we get to any of that, let us first do a couple of things. Number one, talk about guidelines, because that is a very strong guideline that I always talk about. Guidelines. I love guidelines. Guidelines bend. They don't break. They're always there for you. They always work. And I'm repeating myself across many, many, many episodes, and I'm going to again because that's also a guideline. Okay, in the planner section, we know what the planner section is because we planned it. It is everything that goes into the story. It's the creative mixing bowl, and then it's the actual narration. In the pantser section, we're going to talk about writing a satisfying ending, which I think is kind of appropriate since this is the ending. And before we do anything else, let's take a moment to breathe and stretch. So we're going to sit nice and upright. We're going to have our sit bones sitting nicely in our seat, and we're going to take a nice deep breath. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Deep breath in and stretch. And just because Apothecaria is coming to an end doesn't mean your breathing and stretching should too. Mine's not going to, yours shouldn't either. It's good for you. Okay. Before I do anything else, which would typically just be diving straight into the story, I am going to, before I do that, I am going to do a shout out to a wonderful company, Stilo and Stile. So they are a fountain pen, writing instrument, paper, ink company. Wonderful folks. The customer service is absolutely magnificent. And the reason why I say all of this is because I wanted to do a nice gifty thing for my lovely lady, Love Alicia. And Stilo and Stile have been absolutely magnificent in providing help in all of the questions that we were looking to have answered. Getting photos of specific things that we were looking at, and it was always the same person that we were talking to, and it was just a lovely conversation back and forth. So very, very, very pleased with Stilo and Stile. So they are not a sponsor of this video. They have no idea that I'm even doing a shout out in this video, but thank you so much to them. And I would recommend, I would suggest that if you are a fountain pen person, someone who likes the good fountain pens, not like me, who likes, you know, the bottom of the barrel, and we have a very nice pen that is making its way along with some other items, and very, very pleased with everything about the shopping experience with Stilo and Stile. And I will be putting the link on the screen here, and it's also going to be in the show notes. Okay. So now that that is done, let us now jump into the narration, shall we? Yes. Okay. I talk to myself a lot. Maybe it's because I'm just the only one here, unless the cat is behind me. If you haven't listened to or read parts 1 and 2 first, You really should. That way, this one will make a lot more sense. Okay. With that said, let's go. Spring, week 11, part 3 of 3, Liberation. I called for Vapor Trail. This time I got an acknowledgement. In the minutes between call and arrival, I gathered the other reagents that I could carry, pulled out Slow and draped her over my neck, then waited a few seconds before the broom arrived in her glowing glory. And then I remembered the ability to configure Pop as I needed. So I did. Kunk, after watching in disbelief as the light tower formed into a cargo elevator of sorts, allowing for huge mushroom cap transport, turned to me slowly. "You witch? Ah, yes, but not only." He then conspiratorially got in close, and I held my breath as best I could. "Kunk friend, you remember, Kunk friend." He patted me on the shoulder, hard enough to bruise, but not so hard to knock me off my feet, got the mushrooms loaded, watched as Bess and I got situated, then waved as we flew off. It wasn't far to the cottage. "Bess, what was that you were saying in the boat? It can wait until this round of crazy is over and we can talk without interruption. What I want to know is what's the plan for curing your patient?" I told her. "Seriously? Oh my goodness, you are serious? No, you aren't doing that alone. I'm coming with." But Bess, what are you going to do? Look, there are things you are brilliant at, but in this one, you're going to need from someone who's brilliant with a different skill set, and that's me." We'd landed, our familiars had come over and seemed to want our collective attention, but we discussed the plan. No longer simply my plan, but our plan, until we each agreed. Neither of us was completely happy with it, but it was the best we could devise given the situation. "Sounds complicated." That was Mouse-Eye. "Foolish, if you ask me," which no one did. And that was Marvin. "It's okay, you two. There's no need to be a part of it. You can sit this one out." "Must I?" was the automatic reply. And then I think he realized just what he'd said. "Well, if you want to be a part of it, that'd be great." I don't know why, in the middle of all this, I found amusement in watching Mouse-Eye's face wrestle with backing out or continuing on. "Well, okay. Besides, you'll need me to watch." "Okay, fine. Leave me behind. Again." Marvin, of course. A few words of encouragement from Bess later had all 4 of us taking part in this cure mission. The potion took a minute to put together. That was the easy part. The anticipated hard part was going to be getting our unwitting patient to drink it. That's the point of contention that's been causing so much stress and anxiety. We knew, or strongly surmised, that Mrs. Ruffage, in catching dragon sickness and gathering students, possibly even just people in general, was somehow sedating them. It was highly unlikely that a large group of people would be unable to force their way to freedom. We could only assume that entering the building was a one-way trip. Unless, of course, we could effect a cure. Which is why it wasn't the potion itself that was the important part, but instead the presentation of the potion that was. We had to make sure she drank it. Otherwise, things could get dicey. Bess, bless her, figured that because she was better at steering people to do things, and in particular people acting like a dragon, that she should be involved. I think, too, she figured having another set of hands could be useful. Mouse-Eye was another set of eyes and ears. Yes, he's also an unreliable agent in all this, but still. And Marvin, self-titled smartest creature on Earth. I had no idea how a talking donkey would be received, but it was worth trying. Maybe the sheer confusion he'd introduce would help. With the potion in a vial and ready to be administered, the 4 of us walked to High Rannoch. On the way, Bess started mumbling to herself, even trying out a tune. "What's that?" I had to ask. "Oh, just focusing on what we're doing in the moment and trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong." "Oh, yeah, right. So I've got something like this. We're off to see the teacher, the magical teacher who's cursed. We hear she is a whiz of a witch, if ever a witch there was." You're able to think in songs at a time like this. Amazing. You cope your way, I cope mine. The laughter that followed was a bit forced and died off quickly, but the interaction was long and absorbing enough to get us to the High Rannoch gates that were closed. Camped outside the gates were a couple of traveling merchants. They appeared to have settled in with a fire going, horses grazing, and tents set up. One merchant looked up. "Ho there, the gates are closed." Just on the edge of hearing, Marvin muttered, "Captain Obvious to the rescue. What's next? You looking to get into town?" "You looking to get into town? It hurts being right all the time." As Bess shushed the donkey, I responded, "How long have you been camped out here?" "Oh, not long, a couple of hours maybe. Tried getting someone's attention to find out about the gates, but He shrugged to finish his statement. We stared at the gates. I so wanted to just rip rotting boards off the rotting wall, but that was more a thought towards my anxiety than a helpful plan. I knew it'd be simple to fly over the wall and open the gate. But what if that was the point? What if it was a trap? Or what if I was grossly overthinking this? "Mouse-eye?" I asked, knowing the probable answer. "Mm-hmm." Surprise number one. No, wait, this was bigger than a mere number could express. The mouse was still within earshot and willing to answer. "Can you check to see if it's safe on the other side of the gate?" "Thinking about traps." In this moment, that's all I can think about. "Okay." Surprise number... Never mind numbering them. Mouse-eye was actually taking a look when I asked. I was shocked. Relieved and shocked. "It's clear," he said a moment later. With that reassurance, I summoned Vapor Trail. I figured I could load up us four, get into town, and then... I wasn't sure what. At the last minute before the broom arrived, I gave the potion to Bess. I have a feeling she's going to be focusing on me, so I hope that will give you space to dose her. Bess gulped, but then nodded and accepted the vial. Although I could have had Vapor Trail land in front of us, I decided it'd be better to have it fly into the palm of my hand with a satisfying smack. The merchant's eyes went white with surprise. "I believe there is danger lurking on the other side of these walls. My friends and I are going to deal with it. When the danger is over, we'll get the gates open for you." Now it was their turn to mutely nod. I just wished I was half as confident as I sounded. It would have been a quick hop over the high Rannoch wall, and in hindsight, I guess it was. At the same time as we sailed into the air and cleared the boundary between inside and outside, I found myself seeing a third option, flying into the sky and never coming back, which, to be honest, hit me. I'd never considered leaving this place, but perhaps in some way, shape, or form, I was starting to think in terms of being elsewhere. But thinking through that thought would have to wait. There was something seriously wrong in town. It couldn't simply be a case of one person's dragon sickness. I landed us in front of the Hightower residence. I figured that since I'd told Francie that I'd alert Madame Hightower that I was about to go to the herbology school, I should do just that. No one came to the front door when I knocked. Same at the back entrance, but it was unlocked. I let myself in and found no one. This wasn't good. I told Bess what I'd found, or hadn't found. "That's not good." "I know, right? So what's the plan now? Does it change?" "I think we're all going to have to be really careful. I'm just not sure what's going to happen." We stood in silence for a minute. Then Bess said, "You know, if it weren't for the fact that it seems like the whole town could be abducted, I guess is the right word, I'd be thinking about leaving this place, for now anyway, and maybe getting some help." "I hear you. I just don't know who we could enlist in this. And even if I was to seek help, it could take longer than some of these people have left. I mean, we don't know exactly what's happening in the school." We shared resigned shrugs, and then started to walk towards the school building. We'd find out soon enough just how bad things were. On the way, I found myself wondering who I could ask for help were I to seek help. The Count and Igor might be willing. I even had Richard's debt of appreciation for the cure I gave him a few weeks ago. The Sphinx might be willing, as might the noble elf in Glimmerwood Grove. Even Kunk, perhaps even his brethren, could help. But for each of them, I found a reason why it was impractical. With each step closer to the school, the reasoning "we're running out of time" loomed larger, until we were standing in front of the rather unimpressive, unimposing building. As I approached the door, it opened, revealing the smiling face of the mayor's wife. Now, when I say smiling, it wasn't a good smile. Instead, it was a self-satisfied, gloating, scary. What had I walked into? "Well, hello, Mistress Sweetwater, and you brought friends. Delightful. All of you will make your way inside. Just follow the blubbering cries of Francie. She'll be so happy to see you." Now, I hadn't considered this. Not that this was at all foreseeable. Not even Mouse Eye saw it coming. He was on my shoulder when we were confronted. Drat. I did hear Bess direct Marvin in as if he were an ordinary donkey, and we also heard Francie start calling out, panicked, asking us not to do anything heroic. I made my way to the room where Francie was. Behind her, holding a knife to her throat, was Mrs. Ruffage, and next to her was the mayor. In his hands was a doll. "Well, isn't this cozy?" said the mayor with a smile that mirrored his wife's. Mrs. Ruffage, meanwhile, had a crazed look in her eyes. "Cozy? Oh, yes, I've been waiting for you, my dear. I've a collection of treasures, but not every gem is a jewel. You, dear, are a jewel and will be the prize of my trove." Meanwhile, Bess and Marvin crammed in behind me, followed by the mayor's wife. Cozy? Not anymore. It was stuffed. "You look confused. Allow me to explain it to you." That was the mayor, Oliver Chutney. "You see, no one likes you. I'd hoped you'd leave with the rumors swirling about me and you. But no, you stayed. Bought a broom even. By the way, where is it?" He directed that at his wife. "It's outside." That was his wife. He looked annoyed. "You brought in a mule but didn't think it important to secure a magical broom?" "Donkey," I said. "Mule, donkey, ass, I don't care. It's just that silence, sweet. Or should I say Abigail?" And there it was. The name I'd been advised to hide, and which of course the school knew, and so did the mayor, who now had a long needle pointed at the doll's head. "Do you know what this is, Abigail? It's a Cupid doll. In an age where everyone insists on having more and more flash in their magic, I far prefer the tried and true. Allow me to show you." In went the pin into the doll's head, and I didn't feel a thing. Oliver, meanwhile, just grinned. "Ooh, a tough one, eh? You and me and Dolly make 3. I'm going to—" No, I'm going to place her in my collection with the others. You shall not harm my precious treasure." The mayor's wife, meanwhile, had grabbed at Marvin to try to drag him out. And that's when things got really interesting. Marvin refused to budge no matter how hard she tried to move him. She made the mistake of getting behind Marvin and trying to grab his back legs. Instead, she got kicked in the chest and was launched out of the room. Hearing that, I summoned Vapor Trail, which flew into the room and started to swat Oliver's head with her bristles. Within all that, I heard Bess exclaim in surprise, then felt Sarah being pulled out of my pocket by Mouse Eye. Mrs. Ruffage's eyes went wide in greedy excitement. She grabbed hold of my wand and stopped moving. Mouse Eye shot me a look that meant I should grab hold of the wand and enter her space. I opened my eyes. I was standing in front of the lone tree on the hill. The glowing form of Sarah stood beside me. Looking confused, holding her head and spinning in circles, was Mrs. Ruffage. I walked over to her. "Mrs. Ruffage, you're safe. You're—" "In your wand, yes, and I, at least for now, have my mind back. I have a feeling your friends are administering a potion to cure me. Dragon sickness, if I'm not mistaken." "Yes, ma'am." "I think I know how they infected me. A book, of all things. I started reading it, and all of a sudden collecting treasure was all important. But not just any treasure. People. I had the school making sleeping draughts for days." "A book? You mean they're responsible for attacking Count Van Ronnock?" "Sorry, who's that, dear?" "The vampiric necromancer living in Heroes Hollow." "Oh, him. Is that his name? I've only ever been interested in gathering a bit of venom from him from time to time. His curious assistant, Igor." "Really? Igor? Anyway, he collects it for me as needed." Sarah took the following pause to interject. "You must depart. Things are reaching their conclusion." I opened my eyes. Bess had somehow maneuvered herself to Mrs. Ruffage's side and stood there holding an empty vial. Oliver was curled up in a corner as the broom continued to beat him with bristles. Mouse Eye was sitting on the doll on the other side of the room. Francie had forced herself into a corner and was trying to shrink herself even smaller. And Marvin, he was standing over and keeping a watchful eye on a very still wife. Mrs. Ruffage began trying to move. Bess, bless her, tried to look threatening. "Bess, it's okay. The potion's working." Bess backed off, a little uncertain. Mrs. Ruffage looked her in the eye. "The potion is working, thank you. And now it's time to revive the town and the early arrivals for the festival revels. Let me recommend we see to the senior staff first. As she began to compose herself, Marvin asked, I want to lie down on her. I know it'd be inappropriate, but I'm hoping someone, anyone, will say I'm wrong. Not that I ever am, but in this case, I'll hold on to a glimmer of hope. When, after a few seconds of awkward silence had passed, he said, Figures. It was as if the room began to exhale. Mrs. Ruffage set off to begin helping all those she trapped. Francie declared she needed to be by Madame Hightower's side when she came to, and Bess and Marvin moved the now groaning Mrs. Chutney to where someone could see to her likely broken ribs safely. With a word from me, Vapor Trail stopped beating the mayor, who cried out in relief. Seeing the opportunity, I crouched in front of him. Why didn't your magic doll work? He looked from me to a very aggressive broom menacing him. There's something unnerving about a magical object that's just beaten you senseless while it hasn't broken a sweat. Not that it's possible for a broom to sweat, but when you're used to equating exertion with perspiration, not seeing the latter gives every indication it's still ready and willing to do the former. He complied and answered, I don't know. It's always worked in the past. Even your predecessor succumbed eventually. Oh, she was a tough nut, but... And then he shrugged. I needed space. Clarity, answers, the truth. The world was unhinged, spinning, zooming past as I careened down the suddenly twisting hallway and heaving floor. Because that name, the one I'd attached to for all my life, but for the last few months, was now not only disassociated from me, I really had come to embody Mistress Sweetwater, but also just plain wrong. A lie. I didn't know who I was. I had to go. To move, to fly. The vapor trail was in my open hand, vibrating, potent, impatiently waiting. I climbed onto her bristles, not wanting anything except the feel of icy air blowing me to smithereens, cleansing, purifying, annihilating. I launched, the air screaming from the ferocious ascent. I never dared to fly so fast, so carelessly, incautiously. Clouds dissolved as I jetted through them. I think I was aiming at the sun itself. Through tear-streaming eyes, I saw Mouse-Eye perched on the broom's handle, sitting, smiling, whiskers twitching. Bastard! I can never stay angry in the face of twitching whiskers, but I wasn't about to release this anytime soon. What do you want? I shrieked. By all rights, his answer should have been swallowed by the roaring wind, but I heard him as clearly as if we were talking in the cottage. I'm proud of you, Mistress Sweetwater, and that I'm happy I stayed at the familiar summoning ceremony. Everyone else missed out. Oh yeah? But who the hell am I? Exactly who you are. No more, no less. Names don't matter. Oh yeah? What do you know? He just kept smiling. I know you call me a name that is now mine but wasn't before, and you used to be called a name that wasn't fully you. That's probably why the doll didn't work. But we both stayed silent, thinking. At least I was. May I assume you're going to let Count Van Rannoch know about the source of the trapped book? Absolutely. Then may I suggest we go there now? Perhaps a necromancer will have insights we don't. The necromancer? The Count? The Hollow? Why not? Besides, it was freezing up here. By the time we arrived, I'd calmed down a bit. I wasn't seeing red anymore. It was more like a dusky pink. Still reddish, not so vivid. Also, the sun had set, meaning the Count should be up and around and available to see me. I walked into the Count's rooms. I'd been tempted to fly in, but Mouse-Eye cautioned that all it would take was one bad turn and things could get difficult. Swept past Igor and into the Count's study. He was reading a book, looked up at me, over to Igor, who'd followed me in, shook his head subtly, then closed the book and regarded me. Igor, tea, please. He then sat back. The tale playing across your face is bursting to be vocalized, but do take a minute to compose yourself. Only when you are ready should you begin, and I beg you, from the beginning. Sip, breathe, talk. The Count held up a hand. Twice more, then begin. Sip, breathe. Sip, breathe, talk. I told him everything. The dragon sickness, the mayor and his wife, the book, the doll, the failed magical attack, and the supposed problem. I paused. He looked thoughtful. Then, Igor? Yes, master. I believe we're going to have the mayor and his wife for dinner tonight. Do make sure everything's in readiness. Indeed? Excellent, master. The Count viewed me again. So a curse requiring your name failed. That is interesting. And this is where sensibility, which had been consigned to a small locked cupboard in the dark recesses of my mind, finally broke free, shouting as it approached that having a vampiric necromancer help in this regard was about as stupid a thing as anyone could ever do. My face must have fallen at that moment because Richard smiled pleasantly. There wasn't a hint of rapacious wolf or crazed bat in his demeanor. Yes, you've just realized what you've asked of and of whom you've asked it. I currently owe you 2 debts. The one just now, informing me who was responsible for the cursed book in the first place, and that of curing the curse afflicted on me. I shan't hurt you nor act against you. What I will do, however, is consult askew. Come. We ended up in a room dominated by an elaborate series of chalked circles, symbols, candles, and I want to say there was more in there, but I can't clearly recall now. Bidding me stand next to him, he spoke and chanted and made elaborate gestures, and then it was over. I should have guessed, he said. Should have guessed what? And weren't you going to call askew for help? I did. It's done. You have no memory of it because, in a sense, it didn't happen within this time and space. But I do have an answer. Okay, let's go back to my study. It may take a minute to explain. So we did, and it did. And wow. So what you're saying is, and I am still in disbelief, that my father is a woodcutter. He nodded. And my mother is a dryad. He nodded again. And isn't it fitting your chosen pseudonym is Sweetwater, for what is sap, the precious fluid of trees? Sugar water, or, in your case, sweet water. But I chose it without thinking. I had to pick something and you unconsciously honored your heritage. Once again, everything began to swim. Reality was determined, and I mean dead set on making sure no rock was left unturned in remaking my life experience. My life, my everything. Richard looked compassionate. It's a lot. You've been through a lot. The question is, what are you going to do with what you now know? That stopped me. So many things had happened. So many things. I needed a hug, a discussion, a plan. I needed Bess. I'm going back to High Rannoch, help with what I can, go to the cottage and talk and think and maybe not decide anything, but definitely process everything. A fine answer. Now, not to be rude, but I do have dinner plans that I eagerly wish to see through to fruition. Numbly, slowly, I made my way out. To Vapor Trail, to High Rannoch, to seemingly all its residents. Hugs, heart-filled thanks, apologies, explanations, catharsis repeated over and over again. Bess, she found me. I slumped against her, or she against me against her. Not against. Never against. Just we, she and me, side by side, together, safe, always. We got onto Vapor Trail, called to Mouseye and Marvin, who also boarded. Take us home. I don't remember anything else about that night. And that is the dramatic conclusion to this episode, and really to the story in general. Also remembering there is an epilogue to come. Okay, so having come to the end of the episode, the end of the story as it's being told, aside from the epilogue, let us go and do some breathing and stretching. There we are. Okay, let's take a nice deep breath in together. Here we go. And stretch. Ugh. That felt good. Okay, so let's talk about what all went into making this piece of the 3-part series. So part 3. And the first part is usually the prompts. And we've seen the prompts in the first 2 episodes. I'm not going to bother to show them now because there was not a single prompt that was used in the making of this episode. So they're not going to be shown at all. So then we can move straight on into what's been written before. And really, this is going to be just a list of things that I was trying to wrap up. Mistress Sweetwater's Name in Nature. We have been working on that one now for a few weeks, and very happily have come to the end. She's half human, half dryad. And so that's been the big thing. And so Sweetwater does refer to Stapp. And the funny part is I did not remember. I never intended to have that happen. I didn't focus on it. I had no clue back in beginning part of week 2 when it was time to come up with a name for her. I had no idea that this was what was going to happen. So it's just sort of, yay. It's cool. Okay. Then the next thing that I wanted to wrap up was dealing with the mayor and his wife and how they are bad people and doing bad things for the town. And so now we see what it is that they've been up to, making magical items and magical books and Cupid dolls and bad stuff. And also, we, of course, needed to cure somebody, and this was Mrs. Ruffage of a ailment, and so it was dragon sickness, and so we've gotten through that as well. So there is that. And I think it's also kind of an interesting thing, too, that in curing Mrs. Ruffage of dragon sickness, and with this whole span of all of these episodes, we have also, in effect, cured the town of its disease, which is the mayor and his wife. So there's like a double cure, twofer. And that brings us to the imagination piece. And so for this bit, there's a few things that I do want to talk about. So oftentimes when we have stories, adventure stories in particular, you have like one hero. Sometimes a small group and they work together, but oftentimes it's like a primary hero that we're focused on. And I really wanted to have this be a collaborative effort. And really, it turns out that writing it as a one-person thing, it's really much easier because you're keeping track of one person's activities. And so, like, if there's like 6 things you need to do in order to defeat the bad person, well, then it's easy to go like tick the box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as they go through and do it. It's a little bit more difficult to have everyone sort of gather in and do their little bits and have everybody participate. And more or less equally. So I was very pleased with how this one came about, where in fact Sweet in effect does like the least, the least of everything that's happening, and so it's all kind of happens around her. She does do some stuff, no doubt about that, but I really like the fact that the other people had so much to play with the adventure coming to an end. Okay, so another piece, and I just couldn't help myself, as the 4 characters are making their way towards the High Rannoch gates for this final confrontation. So Sweet and Bess, Mousai, and Marvin. I could not help the feeling of a bit of a Wizard of Oz feel to it as they're going off to see the witch, and different things are happening, right? But it still needed to bring it up, and just having that little bit of a musical bit in there as well, with a little bit of a song from the Wizard of Oz. I thought it was just grand. Okay. I also wanted to have the Count and Igor involved in the cure, given that there has been so much activity around them with the Count being cursed by the book, and what all was going on. I really wanted to have them participate as well, and give them some closure in terms of their storyline. If there's pretty much no one else within the book that was sort of a separate character from Sweet and Bess, or Sweet in particular, and then Bess comes in very heavy sort at weeks 10 and 11. But the Count made several appearances, and I thought, let's sort of wrap up his storyline with this as well. And so having the motif of the the cursed book being part of what, or being how Mrs. Ruffage was infected with dragon sickness, and that ties in with the book that was given to the Count when he got his curse. That really allowed things to go sort of like move in parallel, and then so the Count can take that little bit of information and then extrapolate forward. You know, sweet as well. It also gets rid of any sort of taint on Igor's character. I had deliberately left things a bit open before, where Igor could have been responsible for bringing the book in, trying to get the Count to be cursed for designs of Igor's own. Here he is now absolved, and so I thought that was an important little thing. You know, save the reputation of a character who you wrote in. And this also allows for a bit of punishment / revenge to be exacted upon the mayor and his wife. If a vampire is going to have you for dinner, you know, slightly different meaning than if you're inviting your next door neighbors over for dinner, unless they happen to be vampires. Okay, so that takes us to the pantser section, where I want to talk about writing a satisfactory or a satisfying ending. So, how appropriate. We've come to an ending. Let's talk about writing endings. So before I dive in on this topic, I just want to make mention of the fact that I write a lot of microfiction still. I contribute to Moss Piglet once a month, so I'm constantly doing stories for there. And so there's a lot of things that this is going to apply to. It's not just simply these episodes. So keeping in mind that when you have any story, no matter the length, there's always an opening, right? And so the opening is you're going to set the setting, you've got your characters, and you have some sort of problem, conflict, issue, something, right? That's going to make the story a story, right? If there's no conflict, there's no story. There's not. And so you're defining what that is. And in the middle bit, you're working through all of the things that need to be worked through in order to resolve the conflict. And then in the ending, you resolve the conflict, right? Just like we did with the curing of Madame Ruffage. So how do we write an ending that is satisfying, that people will walk away from the story? Because you're trying to capture the attention on the opening. You're trying to hold their attention during the middle, and now you want them to walk away from your story and go, that was a good story. Maybe I'm gonna go back and reread it, or maybe I'm gonna recommend it to a friend, or I'm gonna have good feelings about the story that I've written or that I've read. And so how do you do that? And I think one of the most important ways to do it is you refer back to what it was how you started. Where were you as things were all beginning to, come together? What was the opening? What was the point of the story? And does the ending tell you that the beginning, the problem, the conflict as defined, has been solved? And in this case, I think the answer is yes. Why do I think that? Well, one, Mistress Sweetwater has now kind of gone back to the beginnings of her roots, and we found out the nature of who she is, and the nature of her name. So we've really brought that back to starting point. Mousei, so he's happy that he stuck around during the ceremony to summon a familiar. And so again, we're bringing it right back to this is week 1, week 2 stuff, and so we're bringing it all back, sort of getting a start on, or you're seeing that conclusion, right? We see the start within the finish. Yeah, you see that? You see the start within the finish, and so by seeing the start within the finish, that gives you that sense of catharsis, that okay, I came here expecting a resolution of a thing. There's the resolution of the thing, and I can see how it's gone full circle. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of books where you start off with a problem. Let's put the hand in screen, and then you get to the conclusion, and it doesn't really seem. It seems like it's abrupt, the ending, or it just doesn't make sense, or there's no hearkening back, and that to me can be very unsatisfying. And so, taking this idea one step further, that this is all the more the true for ending a series, where it's not even just this happens to be book length, and I think I'm in the 65 to 70,000 word length. I think, I'm not entirely sure. So that's well within, say, like a short to a regular size novel. But if you're going for a very, very, very long time, having an ending that really wraps the entire series up, so much the better. Taking this one step further, or one thought further, you have all these characters that you've worked with and you've played with, and wouldn't it be nice to know what happens to them? And we don't know yet. For me, that's the purpose of the epilogue. And so that's why I stick it. Some authors will stick it just as the tail end of the tale, so they just kind of keep going. For me, I like to have it in the epilogue. Okay, so that pretty well covers everything that I wanted to cover today. And so moving on to the drawingXpressions haiku. A creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, subscribe, please. And with that said, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. I certainly hope forward. I will see you during the epilogue in 2 weeks' time. And regardless, I hope you've enjoyed the journey, and I hope you'll continue watching the channel. Pip's World is going to be making an appearance in the not too distant future. And looking forward to doing that. And there's going to be, I think, a video or 2 or 3, something, in between the Apothecary one and the Pip's World one. We're still making some decisions, what we're going to be doing, what we're going to present. But in the end, yeah, we are going from Apothecaria over to Pip's World. So an entirely different system, and I hope that you are here through all of it. Anyway, thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.